Thank you everyone for coming. It's our regular Sunrise School Division Board meeting. My name is Paul Manning. I'm the board chair, and it is June the 7th on a beautiful day outside. We are going to have Whitemouth School sing O Canada, so please stand if you can do so. Thank you to Whitemouth School. Appreciate it. We have a treaty acknowledgement, and Trustee Rowland is going to read out our treaty acknowledgement.
We acknowledge the traditional land upon which Sunrise School Division resides as Treaty Territory 1. We honor our partnership with Canada's original peoples and respect the gifts of Indigenous history, culture, and language. We commit to moving forward in partnership with our communities in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation.
Thanks, Trustee Rowland. For the people that are online, we have 7 trustees here tonight. We have Trustee Inslee, Trustee Barry, Trustee Duma, Trustee Rowland, Trustee Reed, Trustee Nickel, and myself. Regrets are coming from Trustee Pachakowski and Trustee Harris. In our room with us, we have Superintendent Timko and Secretary Treasurer Thiessen, Assistant Superintendent Fieldberg. We have our board support that is doing a great job for us, Jennifer Baker. We have a contingent from, and I use that word contingent, from Springfield Middle School, Bob, Heather, Shay, and Christine. Thanks for being here. We also have Suzanne Deanspear, who's going to be presenting on our French immersion program. And beside me, we have Crystal Kramer, who is our SEO, who will be making a presentation with us as well. Thank you all for coming. Adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved, the board approve the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Nickel, seconded by Trustee Rowland. Any questions? Hopefully everybody joins the meeting like I'm just doing too right now. All right, hearing none, we'll vote. Okay, thank you. It passed 7-0. Just some technical difficulties getting from my computer over to Jennifer's, I guess. I'm teasing. Thanks, Jen. So 3.1 is board chair's comments or sharing a story. So I'll open it up to our trustees about sharing any stories they have, certainly as in the last 2 weeks. Trustee Nickel?
Yeah, in Whitemouth, grade 9 student Phoenix Amangan will be competing in the high school provincial finals in the high jump on Thursday at U of M. And they also are having an elder coming tomorrow, which will be going in the teepee they have set up just in the last little while. And they're going to be learning about the teepee and school system from grandmother.
Thanks, Trustee Nichol. Others? I can share certainly from Parview School. Parview School went on they took a group of students, some special students to Drumheller, and I think there were 10 students and 8 adults, and they had a great trip certainly going there. They then set up a dinosaur museum in the multipurpose room, and it was fabulous. I was blown away going in there and seeing the kids about how much they knew about dinosaurs and how much I didn't know, and they let me know that I didn't know, but it was extremely well done. So kudos to the people there. And again, it's good to see there's activities going on in all of our schools, whether it's ball tournaments or sporting events. It's great to see our kids getting out and doing those kind of things. So kudos to them. And if you want a little taste of French Cafe, certainly come out to Parview School on Thursday, as they've been having a long running petit cafe where the students all serve parents and guests French cuisine, and they're doing it through their French immersion program. It's pretty awesome. Kathy, you have some?
Lars and I got a chance to go to École Beaux-Arts Early Years School, and we had a group of students showcasing their mosaic tile art project. So the pillars in the front of the school have got a mosaic tile that each and every student contributed to. So it's really kind of neat, and you can go have a look at it even if the school's not open. It's really quite beautiful. And then this afternoon, Jody Wilgosh and Trevor Reed and I got out to Gillis School, where they were having a garage sale to fundraise for some of the families coming to Manitoba from Ukraine. And so they started their garage sale at 1 o'clock, and at 2:25, Principal Penner texted that they had already exceeded $1,000 on their garage sale. So they were hard at it till 7 o'clock tonight, and we'll get a final report when they're done.
Any others? Trustee Duma?
I just wanted to do a congratulations to 2 students from Dougal School, a Fiona Coetzer and a McKellen Ellis, on a successful performance with the Provincial Junior Honor Band. By competitive audition, they were accepted to perform with 50 grade 5 to 8 musicians from across the province, and they had a performance at Maples Collegiate on May the 28th. So I think representing our school, doing the performance, and they are on a YouTube video that's available at Dougal School. So congratulations to the students.
And one last thing for me is that Parview School and Springfield Collegiate are going to battle again this week, and this time it's lacrosse. The first time it was hockey, and Springfield Collegiate came on top. We'll see how it goes with lacrosse. It might be helped that I'm refereeing the game, so we'll see where that all goes. Again, if you have any questions, please send the questions to Jody Thiessen at sunrisesd.ca. So that's jody.thiessen at sunrisesda. Name and address of the sender, please include it in the email, and we will ask Jody at the end of the night if there are any questions from the public. We'll try to answer them there. So we have Superintendent Timko. We have 4 presentations. And I guess the first one that we're asking is for Crystal. So Crystal is our Senior Electoral Officer, and we've asked you there for a little update. So Crystal, I'm going to give you the floor is yours. Crystal, I am going to tell you that we have a number of people presenting tonight, so we are going to try to keep you to the point. So you've got 3.5, no. we've got about 10-15 minutes for questions as well, Crystal, but the floor is yours. You have to use the microphone.
Hello, everybody. Some people I know, some people I don't, so hi. The report as of updated May 12, just to let you know where we're at. We have officially gotten a new voters list and have, with the work of our IT department, created a database out of it instead of using Excel spreadsheets. So this will allow us a lot better reporting and a lot better recording and of course maintaining of the voters list. And of course it's a lot more secure. It's hidden behind a VPN, so it's not just floating out on a data disk somewhere anymore. Over the last bit, I was a bit delayed because of the whole Bill 64 stuff, so some stuff got put on hold until that got cleared up. But I have been working closely with the RM of Springfield's new SEO to establish a good working relationship there, and we've identified a few cost-saving opportunities for the election time, which will benefit both sides. And let me just read my notes here. Yeah, and I've also talked to most of the RMs, although actually I should say I've talked to all of the RMs about sharing cost saving through the election, sharing facilities and whatnot. However, I did just find out that the town of Beausejour and some other places are not part of the RM in terms of election terms, so I do have a few more places to reach out to. Oakbank is not like that, so that was a new learning experience for me. But pretty much all the other RMs have communicated with and established contact and secured that we'll be using the same facilities for them, with them for their municipal elections. All right, I'm not going to read through the important dates. The only things to know really that I just point out a few things. Of course, October 26th is Election Day. We run a very different time frame from the municipalities. They're already in election mode, and people are putting in their nomination papers and everything. Our nomination period doesn't even start until the end of August. So we have this big gap where the municipality's been running their elections already, and then suddenly we come in at the end and go, hi, hello, we're going to be there too. So that is actually one of our challenges that I've listed under here, is how do we garner momentum for the school board elections when we're already, you know, people have been listening to municipal elections for months, and then suddenly the school board election comes in at the very end with less than 2 months before the election date, and saying, hey, y'all need to come out and vote for us too. So that's something I'd like everybody to be thinking about, and if anybody has any ideas. I've reached out to the Clipper. They actually held one with the RM of Springfield. They held an information session, and it was put on by the Chamber of Commerce and the Clipper, and it was basically this is, you know, what the duties of municipal official is. You know, this is how you run an election, how you sign up for the election, how you run your campaigns and stuff. And when I talked to them, they were very interested in potentially working with us to do something similar for the school board, which I think would be great to get more information out and garner a lot more interest on what the school board does. So that is one proposed idea. Hopefully I'm not talking too fast, because you told me to motor, so I'm motoring. Actually, my notes got cut off here. Sure. Oh, yeah, I do know a couple of things. So I did have some questions in my reports. Ones were, are our ward maps that are currently on the website up to date? They are listed as the ones for 2018. As far as I know, no boundaries or anything have changed, but I want to make sure that that information is up to date. This month I will be talking to whoever's in charge of that to update that section of the website for the 2022 election information. And of course putting out the notice that we will be accepting updates to the voters list between now and September. And I'm just going to leave that open all summer. And oh, I did make note as well, which this is the one thing that everybody had communications about, those pockets of addresses that we have in the wards that are technically part of another school division, or would have been part of another school division, but have opted to send their students to the Sunrise School Division instead. We've got, I don't know, 50 to 100 little sections, which I don't think, there may be 50 voters in total. But those pockets, I've decided it wouldn't be feasible, or wouldn't be financially feasible for us to put 2 people in a room in the municipal office that day 10 voters. So I've come up with a plan to mail those addresses specifically, direct mailers, basically stating, hey, FYI, you won't be able to vote for the school division at the municipal office like you normally would, or your municipal voting location on voting day. Here's some alternatives. And of course, we will have a place for them to vote. For instance, most likely they'll be going to Dugald, but it won't be in the same location. I want to make sure that they know that, and to give them advanced voting options as well as the ability to mail in vote as additional options in case it is inconvenient for them to travel. So that was one part of it. That's pretty much the update.
Thanks, Crystal. So I'm going to open up the trustees if they have any questions or comments. Trustee Rowland?
Who is the SEO for Springfield, please?
Hey, don't remember off the top of my head, but I will email that out to you afterward.
I was also wondering, have you talked to the municipalities about working together, about saving, working together, making it convenient and cost effective to have these elections together? Is there a date set for training, crossover training with them, or?
We actually decided to not do the crossover training like we did last time because there were some issues with boundaries and reading maps and whatnot that caused some difficulties. So we did decide that we would each hold our own training sessions in regards to that. The only crossover we may have is with like the information officers and stuff at the door, which we will be doing for sure.
One more follow-up for clarification. So are you, last election, was it like at the trustee tables that were at polling stations, they were being manned by people that our SEO would have appointed and hired, or by the RM people? So I guess I want to say, who's hiring those for trustee?
So from my understanding, especially with the RM of Springfield, that was where we ran into a hiccup, where we, because of the nature of us being kind of compressed and not having an SEO and Scott sort of having to scramble to get everything done, the RMs offered to hire staff for us, but to help eliminate any issues with that, we've elected to, I will be handling all of the hiring for all of our staff and all of the training so that we don't have that particular issue.
Thank you. Trustee Reed?
I know you said that you've been trying very hard to get the municipal and village and school board all in the same venue. I'm just wondering, I know in Lac Du Bonnet about 4 elections ago, they didn't manage to get the school board in with the municipal, and I think the people that voted for school board was down to about 1/3 of what it was for the municipalities, because I guess the thing is that people go and vote for the political people or the RMs in the villages, and they come out of there, and I guess it's basically, well, let's get in the car and go home, and we're not going to drive over to the other building just to vote for school board. So I'm just hoping that you'll be successful in getting the school board elections in with the RM and the village. Have you heard anything yet about that, or?
With Lac Du Bonnet specifically, I have heard back from them to know what locations they're at, and they have expressed to me that they want to do the same to try and have us in the same location. So I will be doing my utmost to make sure that happens and to not split us, because like you said, we want this to be convenient. As it is, school board voting is usually lower, and part of that is if we have to split locations, it's not convenient for people anymore. I did have a point to add to that because I remember now what I had on there. I read my notes before I came. The advanced polls, I was wondering if we've ever attempted to have them in ourselves rather than have them RM run and have them in the schools, and if that's something that would be possible.
So the issue, Kathy, maybe you can answer that, but the issue, Kath, then is having people unknown coming into our schools. Is that correct? Do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, so it would be almost a security, and where do we put them, and do they have a separate entrance, and how contained would that be in terms of entering the school, and also I think how disruptive to the day it might be in terms of what's happening in a school on any given day.
Nicol?
There's not questions, but information. I guess you could have in the school if it's on a Saturday, but not Monday or Friday. So that is a possibility. Yeah, and the other thing is that when, I'll give you an example in Ward 1, which I'm the trustee of, that there's, when my ward goes into Lac Du Bonnet and Reynolds and Whitemouth, so how are you going to do it so that someone from Whitemouth, someone from Lac Du Bonnet, when they vote for the municipality in Lac Du Bonnet, are they going to be able to vote for me at the same time, or do they have to come all the way to Seven Sisters, which won't happen?
You already say that they're going to vote for you? Is that what you're, okay.
Yeah. So that's where I'm working very closely with the RMs to split up our voters list, so that essentially my plan is to have my voters list for for those wards match the voters list at the municipal office. So your ward is one that's split. So that ward would be split equally between those locations, so that yeah, they could, if they normally vote at that location for the municipal, their school board voting will be there as well.
So in that case, there'd be two. So in that case, they'd be voting like if Russ runs, they'd be voting for Russ, and then they also be voting for me. So there'd be two polls there, right? One for me, and anybody else is running against me. That's why I'm not saying there's got to be something running against me if somebody's voting. So and the other one will be for Lac Du Bonnet. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Anyone else? Trustee Barry?
You just touched on, you talked about Beausejour. What was the issue you had with Beausejour? I didn't quite understand what you were saying about that. Just a clarification on that.
Well, because I'm from Oakbank and I grew up in the RM of Springfield, the RM of Springfield's mayor runs the town of Oakbank as well. But I recently learned that the RM of Brokenhead and the town of Beausejour are two different entities. So I didn't know that. So that was a learning thing. And there might be a few other places that are like that yet. So that was just my...
Any other comments? Trustee Duma?
Thank you, Crystal. I appreciate the work that you've done. We did receive your report on May the 17th. And there was some commentary. You've already mentioned a little bit about the fact that you might have polls that have small numbers. And I think in your document, you were looking at some wards have small pockets of voters, which will not have a division polling station at their municipal voting place. Mostly few residences whose children would normally go to a different school division. So you've discussed that about having a mail-in option. I guess the thing for me is making sure that people have really good maps, really good information ahead of time, whether we use our school division website, the Clipper, whatever we can use to make sure that people are really clear. And I guess you have a contact phone number if people have any questions, but you're not advertised on our website yet, which we need to get that done, right? I guess my question is, over the years, we actually had an attempt to have a one-stop shop for voting, and it was a motion that went by resolution to MSBA, that especially the rural area, we wanted people to not feel that they had to vote in one place for a counselor and one place for a school trustee, that it was a one-stop shop voting idea. So I guess even though there might be small numbers in some of the small areas, I think that I would really hope that we would do our best to make sure there was a trustee voting booth far and wide wherever councils are voted in also. I just think we need to, it might be small numbers, but that's one of the reasons we don't have big turnout. And I mean, we've had historical stories of people saying, drove around, didn't know where I could vote, so didn't bother. So then you have very poor numbers at the polling station for school trustees. So I just would like to encourage you to see what options you could find out there to make sure that there's voting there for both. Thank you.
So great point, Trustee Duma. I think that everyone agreed here, Crystal, is that we don't want people going as what Trustee Reed brought up and what Trustee Nickel brought up. If you're voting in a municipal election, you're voting for trustee and for the municipal at the same place. Because we know history, people who voted municipal, they won't go looking for a trustee. So that's as a group, we certainly talked about that. So thanks certainly for that. Anyone else? So the only other thing is that you brought up a point, Trustee Duma, and we've talked about it with Superintendent Timko, certainly about us getting on our front of our webpage. We have a scrolling, probably about 7 or 8 different items. One of the items certainly will be about trustee elections, and if there needs to be, then if somebody wants to find out information, it's about getting your information on there so that it's there. And, you know, all of a sudden maps and those kind of things. Whatever we need to go ahead and do to help, we will. Okay? Anyone else? Trustee Duma?
Sir, like I guess you mentioned that advanced polls with head office being in Beausejour. That's stated in the March 17th report. But your advanced polls can be in many locations, correct? So I just don't understand the issue with the head office being Beausejour. Like, is there a requirement for more flexibility for you?
If I were to do an advanced poll where it was staffed by us and we were just saying like just one group location, I think that's more where I was speaking to that, then the logical place would be at the head office here in Beausejour because it's, but it's just not easily accessible by everyone. So that's where I was toying around with the idea, because I don't think that would be a good idea. I'm with you on that. So I 100% don't think that that's a good idea. I was trying to work through my head how I would eliminate the possibility of voters voting in the incorrect location, because all of the RM individual advanced polls, they're only running them at a single location, which would make it difficult for us with our wards crossing, you know, our ward boundaries being different. We would have separate wards at that same RM location, and it would be a lot for their staff to be concerned of. So I was playing around with, well, what would be the best way for us to do that and ensure that our integrity of the vote is 100% solid and we don't run into the same issues that we had last year. So I'm 100% with you. That is not, it's not a feasible option. Whereas where I was thinking, well, if we had our own advanced polls in the schools, that would might be a better option. Or it might be me talking with the RM office and going, can I have 3 tables off on your side on your advanced poll table, or advanced polling day, and that's for my people. Still working out the logistics on that one, so.
Crystal, thanks very much. And again, if there's other questions or you need to come back to us later on in June or in September to share, certainly we would like to hear from you. If you're running into some roadblocks, let us know so how we can work at this together. But thanks on behalf of the board for coming out and doing this. Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on. Kathy, I think that we have Mr. Welsh and his entourage from Springfield Middle School. I'll let you, do you want to introduce him?
So welcome to Bob Welsh, who's the principal of Springfield Middle School, Heather Bethune, who is his assistant principal, and he has got 2 lead teachers with him in the people of Shay Mulligraf and Christine Doing. And I can say that every time that I visit Springfield Middle School, I feel fairly confident that the capacity is really being built there, because I can have a conversation with any one of those 4 people and the conversation would be the same in terms of what everybody's working on. So it's really neat to see all 4 of you here, and thanks for that.
Thanks. I know one thing before we get started. Thanks for the introductions. I know those two are not going to need the microphone because they have the most fantastic teacher voices here, but we'll keep it on just in case, and I won't have a problem with it. Heather might have a little bit of one, but based on...
The microphone isn't for the people in the room. The microphone is actually for the people that are watching live. The 300,000 that are recording right now
Excellent.
that are watching it.
I'm sure electronics help that anyways, Paul. On our share a story, I have to jump in there before we go into our school goals. Share a story at SMS. It's a big one. Have to take advantage of the opportunity. A while ago we went, wow, we're going to be able to do things. You've probably heard this obviously for the last 3 months, 2 months anyways. There has been an incredible amount of opportunities happening at SMS. Too many to mention. These two people, Heather, myself, have had the opportunities to be part of them, lead them, everything from extracurricular track, band concerts that were populated unbelievably in our parking lot with no space, field trips, like I said, in the French communities, all kinds of things. If you'd like to take a look at our website, I just want to say thank you for everyone that supported those extracurriculars. They're very important. They were missing for a long period of time. I know you've heard this, but it was amazing that we could do these things. We sat down and strategically placed out how can we be fiscally responsible, curriculum-wise responsible, and still do many of these things that haven't happened for a long period of time. SMS has done a great job, definitely not because of me. I've kept an eye on some budget more than anything, but amazing people like these. And thank you very much for the support if you had anything to do with that, and I think you all probably have. So I wanted to say that before we got into school goals. Entourage is correct. I do have some self-servants part of this. They're going to know many of these questions in data collection and input better than I am, so there's some self-serving there. But it has been a team approach. Heather and these two have met more than I have. I won't try to disguise that. But as we try to be a valuable implementation of it, it does take a coaching role that we have here, a coaching role, and obviously a leadership role with Heather, and me jumping in there and trying to be part of that leadership team to get some of these things done, or else it does seem like a surface goal, and that's nowhere where any of us wanted to be on a surface goal. So this is the least surface goal that I've been part of in a long, long time, and it's been difficult even with COVID to do that. But I'm appreciative of all these people, so they get to come. All it took was Chinese food and a ride so they didn't have to pay their gas. So, but no, it didn't take that. That was just a bonus, and I'm very happy to have them. So our goal was June 2022, all students will show growth in one of the following areas: literacy, numeracy, and or social skills, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along here. So why goal setting? I know you've already been aware of our presentation and why goal setting was part of it. To be a little shorter than the communication that's on here, we collected data from our staff and teachers a while back, and after, it was most specifically after our critical thinking goal, and it was wholeheartedly, I guess, part of the data that we collected from teachers. This is what we'd like to see in the growth area of our students. We have a short window of 3 years, obviously grade 6, 7, and 8, and that's something that we valued was, can our students goal set? And then we got more specific on what they're going to goal set with and use for our data collection. We identified it's a skill set of goal setting and successful accomplishment and how to be an individual goal setter in those students when they leave our school. It included the procedures in that development. We felt that the data supported that need, and now our challenge was, can the data support which direction we go? They have more specifics on that than I do, but that was important. I'm going to hand it over to Heather and these other two about the more specifics of that and where it developed and some of the evidence and progress.
Thank you, Kathy. So it was pretty amazing this year with the fact that 100% of our students set goals in multiple areas. What was the most interesting when we started in September was that we realized quickly there was no one-size-fits-all way of approaching goal setting, and that we had to be extremely responsive to our classes and who was sitting in front of us. And that puts us
in an uncomfortable position as teachers because we could have stood at the front and said, this is how you're going to teach your students. This is the goal setting template you're going to use. Let's go. But we gave the teachers a lot of freedom. And with examples, with modeling ourselves, with the offer of us coming into their classrooms, both us and student services, they did an absolutely fantastic job supporting the goal setting goal also. And it was interesting when we started going because I heard feedback from our grade 6s. My students just aren't ready to set goals independently. We need to model. We need to work with our class. We need to set class goals, which maybe wasn't our intention at the beginning. We were looking at how we get them to independence and then realizing we have 3 years, maybe not with their entire student population, but we do have 3 years to work through a lot of that modeling and goal setting. The grade 7 teachers came back with some feedback of, wow, this lesson I did was fantastic. Others came back in our second PD session and said, wow, that bombed. That wasn't the way I thought that would go. What am I going to do as my next step? And that's where a lot of the collaboration came in with teachers. What do we do as our next step when something worked well, but also something really didn't? So those conversations and the support of Shay and Christine also were really valuable in supporting our teachers to really work through how do we approach this as a new goal. Our grade 8 showed a little bit more independence in their goal setting, but we also had to sit back and really support them in the fact that throwing a football, or as one of the students put it, like getting really fit is a great goal.
Jacked.
Jacked, yeah. I was trying to watch my wording. Yeah, but the goal was I would get really jacked. Fantastic. How does that connect to phys ed? How can we work that into that physical fitness goal with your phys ed teacher? Because you're working with that, and your ELA teacher may not be the best person to support you. So our grade 8s were able to be a little bit more independent with some guidance and some modeling as they went to how to problem solve. How do we ask for help? How do we collaborate? What if my goal isn't going well? What if it is going well? How do I assess my progress? Which are all skills we need, especially after COVID. Well, we're still in COVID, but those years where we're building that resiliency, building those problem-solving skills, building those communication and social skills become incredibly important. And I was amazed at how often our grade 8 set social skills goals. To make more friends, how do I communicate? What do I do to problem solve when for the last couple of years they've been in cohorts where they learn to problem solve within their cohort, but now the world's open a little bit. And they have some social skills to work on with people they haven't really been with for 2 years. So that in itself was really phenomenal to see and watch the teachers supporting a lot of that progress.
So obviously throughout the goal setting, a big part of what we were encouraging was teachers to do regular check-ins. That's something that you can't just set a goal and then forget about it, because we'll all forget about it, right? You're looking at check-ins and then reevaluating your goal setting. We like to do, depending on what it is. Obviously, if it's fitness goals, a lot of times those are, because they only get so many phys ed periods, those are usually done maybe with a check-in monthly, and then at the end of the term, they're doing more of a reassessment. In literacy goals, we're usually doing a check-in about every 10 days, and then doing a goal assessment usually about every 6 weeks or so, depending on the class and depending on time and stuff. At the end, we sat down and talked about, so we know that we are looking at this as a 3-year goal, and we wanted to get some feedback from the students on what were the goals that they had, what were the goals that, how did they work on them, what was some information that we wanted to find out, but also we sent it back to our teams, our grade level teams, grade 6, 7, and 8. What did the teachers want to find out from the kids as well? What information did they want? So we put together a 10-question questionnaire, sent it out. All of the students completed it, and we got our feedback from that. It wasn't anonymous. They had their name on it. They had their homeroom, so we were able to then give the feedback to their teachers, and the teachers were able to sit down with the students afterwards, but also we had that feedback as well. So it sort of helped. We wanted to have this information before our next year's goal setting, so our 2023 goal setting so we could have some feedback, so we knew what we needed to tinker when we were looking towards our next year's goals. Some of the questions were simply like, what areas did you have goals on, and they checked, like literacy, fitness, personal skill, etc. Some of it was, do you feel like you achieved your goals? And we wanted to make sure, at the beginning of the year, we have John Cooper working out of our building, and so he spoke to us on goal setting. And one of the really big things is we wanted to talk about celebrating wins, right? If you said you were going to read 300 pages in 3 weeks and you read 30 pages, awesome. That's a win, right? And so that was one of the things. Like, did you achieve your goal? It was, maybe a little bit, right? Like, we wanted to make sure that that even if they didn't achieve the long-term goal, what were some of the things that you did? And even being able to connect back with, did achieving your goal or working on your goal, did you feel that it increased your learning success in that area? And we did find that 100% of students did say that they were working on their goal, that it did increase that success in that area, which is really what we wanted to see, right?
Okay, looking at the assessment data, of course we had students, 100% of our students SMS set goals, and sometimes we found the students were really good at doing it independently. As Heather had mentioned, the older the students were, the more likely they were to set goals independently. In conjunction with that, we found that using the MRLC data was one of the greatest tools we could use. And thank you to Alan for, of course, doing that for us and getting us going on that. But in grade 6 especially, we found that as we started the goal setting process, students weren't necessarily using, they were looking at literacy goals. And as the year went on and evolved, we noticed that students now were looking at their areas of challenges, their struggles, and making goals based on their results, on their formative assessments on the MRLC. So what I love about the MRLC, that part, because it requires the assessment part to be conferencing one-on-one, you had instantaneous feedback for the students and as well for the teachers. So with our data we shared, after that first MRLC formative, look at the 43% of correct answers. After students were setting goals and understanding the process of what do I need to do? What do I need to be accountable for? Maybe I need to review my times tables. Maybe I need to ask for help. Maybe I need to work with one-on-one. Whatever their strategy was, they started to use it and use those tools, because with the second MRLC, the correct answers increased to 71%. That data shows that process and that ability to improve does happen with the goal-setting process. And then both in our grade 7 and 8 classrooms, they decided to take on classroom goals based on their achievement as well. And again, the data speaks for itself when we see that in grade 7, the number of students that set a goal as a group had tremendous success. And the same thing in the grade 8 level. I cannot speak enough with the importance of using these divisional assessments, how they support our goal-setting process. Because let's be realistic, our school goal is to set a goal in many areas. Literacy and numeracy do seem to be the most common among our students, but the MRLC data, you can't argue with it. It's strong, it makes sense, and we've seen tremendous success with it. So I think that shows we're on the right track moving forward.
And I wanted to take a look at report card data. But then taking a look at what does report card data tell us? And is goal setting the only influence in terms of reporting marks? And what I took a look at was the marks on the report card for both ELA and math as of mid-May in comparison to the number of goals set in each domain throughout the year. We are going to use this as a conversation piece during our PD. We used MRLC as a huge portion of our data. Let's take a look at our goals based on MRLC data, and does it compare to the report card data that we're seeing, especially in the area of problem solving? Are we taking a look at problem solving as being truly incorporated to some of that reach back that we're doing based on MRLC goals? So when I took a look at that, it's not the be-all, end-all of of course, our goal is successful, this is really a conversation starter with our teachers, or when we start to really take a look at where we're heading next year, how are we formatting our goal setting with our students, where are we focusing in terms of some of that larger whole class, or really supporting our individual students to set their goals. How can we use this? How do we interpret this? What does this mean to us in our classes? What did this mean for us last year with the students we taught? So it's not necessarily, here's the data. It is a, what do you think? This is what we found. What do you think this means? What do you think we could do with this piece? Problem solving, very few goals were set, but it's also an area of improvement, which is very typical for our reporting period where we see ELA critical thinking and problem solving being that slightly bit lower in terms of marks. So how are we going to approach our goal setting next year? And that's really the focus of this data collection.
I think our next year's goal is obviously a continuation of this one. We've made one significant but yet understandable change. We said all students will show growth in at least one of the following areas: literacy, numeracy, and we've now called it personal development, and that's changed from social skills. It just felt like a more inclusive, representative type of way that students can set their goal, reach them, use their skills that they've already learned. We have a bit of a challenge trying to teach them goal setting in grade 6 as they come new to our school, but yet show the data in grade 7 and 8 after they've learned some of the basics of goal setting in itself and not the specifics of the one individual goal. So the students have displayed executive functioning skills, organization, self-regulation. All of those type of opportunities fit better into personal development. So I've brought the right people. That you can tell. Sorry if we chatted a little bit longer. It's an advantage for Heather and I to have the perspective of a leader and a coach, yet telling us that's not realistic or work for the homeroom teachers, because they're both. So it's very valuable having that perspective of us trying to reach our school goal and having a realistic perspective. So that's helpful when we have the voice directly from our teachers, as Heather and I are trying to figure out a valuable goal. So that's all we have at the moment. Oh, what's that? Oh, I'm sorry, Heather. All you. Yeah, one more. 2, 3 very important points.
So we all, as Shay said, we also surveyed our teachers. What worked, what didn't, what strategies were fantastic, what they would like to see instead if something didn't work well. And so we changed our strategies slightly. We really would like, if teachers are feeling, how on earth did we accomplish everything? There's so much to do. We have our classroom profiles, we have our reading progressions, we have our school goal. How do we manage this? And that's going to be a part of our conversation at our first PD. How do we support each other? What if you do need time? Whose door can you come knocking on? Because I will support you with conferencing, I will cover your class, as how can we work as a team to work on this goal? And we realized we really do need to, we offered, but sometimes you offer and no one takes you up. It's getting in there and just saying, okay, on this day, what are we doing together and how can we support you? Because we don't want to hear that teachers are feeling this is so much, how do we do this? And because, so we're trying very hard, and we did this year too, to fit in, how do we make this all combine and mesh and work together? And Joanna and Alan are going to play a very large role in this year. Alan in more after January, Joanna in the fall, to take a look again at MRLC and reading progressions and the classroom profiles and everything else we have on our plate, and how do we make this manageable, reasonable, and how do we use those pieces? Everything from our daily observations to our daily assessments to our bigger learning pieces that Joanna and Alan are helping us with. How do we reasonably use those to inform us with our goal setting so that we're not looking at everything we're doing as a separate entity. We're looking at all of our pieces meshing together to support our students and our school plan for the year.
Sounds easy.
Yeah. Any questions?
Thanks very much, Questions from trustees? Trustee Barry?
Yeah, thanks for the information. I guess the only one question I have, what does MRLC stand for?
It's the Manitoba Rural Learning Consortium. So it's, like, do you know what the MRLC assessment is? Okay. So I guess Sunrise started doing it, and I want to say we started becoming part of it probably about 7 years ago. So it started off as a pilot program. If I'm remembering correctly, it came from Nova Scotia or PEI. And it's a way of, it uses obviously the Manitoba math curriculum, but it's a way of tracking and making sure that the students it's just a different way of approaching the curriculum. So when we're talking about the MRLC assessment, so there's a series of 4 foundational assessments. You start in February, so there's one in February, and then about 3 weeks later you give the number 2, and then 3 weeks later you give the number 3, and then 3 weeks later you give the number 4, roughly like 3-ish weeks. And they are, now the 6th grade, they're all 10 questions, the foundational quizzes. I teach 6th grade, so those 10 questions are based on the 8 most important outcomes that we have decided that the students need to know in order to get to grade, or they're most important for grade 7. So those are the 8 outcomes. There's 10 multiple choice questions. So it's really great for goal setting because the students do the assessment. You mark it with them right away. You conference, even though it's multiple choice, the students do need to show their work. And hey, guess what? You got 3. Great. So here's what you did wrong on these ones. And then we talk about, so what do you want to do next? Like, what do you want to do? Oh, I did my integers in the wrong order, so I'm going to spend some time on integers. Great. How are you going to do that? When I was dividing my decimal, I really ran into trouble because I was really wonky on my math facts. Great. I'm going to go on reflex 3 times a week. And then the teacher also sets goals. I'm going to work with these groups of kids on this one thing, or I'm going to reteach this one outcome, or whatever. And then 3 weeks later, they take a very similar test. So it's the same types of questions. Am I going on too long?
No.
It's the same types of questions in the same format. No, sorry. As Alan would say, I kind of drank the Kool-Aid, yeah. Right? And so it's great because they can see what they did right and then they do the next one. So I mean, it's amazing for kids. It's great all around. Like the whole program is great, but it's so great because it's like, oh, I got 2. Oh, but now I got 3, yay, right? And now I got 5, that's fantastic. And then near the end, we usually find by the 4th one, like so many of them are just rocking it out, right? Like they're getting their 9s and their 10s, or if they got one wrong, it's because they did at least to greatest instead of greatest to least or something like that. It's really made a difference. And for the goal setting program, if we're going to be using data and we're using that, it's fantastic.
That's the specific part. It's numeracy and math based.
Yeah, it's numeracy.
And it was originally, obviously, Kathy, it's a divisional initiative that using the program leader as a coach and a support in that. But yeah, that's way more important. That's the meat and potatoes, especially at our school.
Did you just want to know it was math?
It's math and numeracy. Yeah.
It's not a pilot anymore. It's now considered a program.
It's both instruction and data collection, and it's all of that.
Go ahead, Lars.
Just very briefly, something I've learned from Alan in this, because I think it's good for you to understand. Traditionally, math teachers kind of went from outcome to outcome to outcome sections, and this approach is revisiting things throughout the year, which is where they're seeing that success. And teachers who've bought into it universally have been like, wow, it's been fantastic wherever it's been implemented well. And it's been a little bit to get teachers to buy into it's okay to revisit instead of doing this and then forgetting it for the rest of the year. But it's everywhere that it's been done, that's the same experience people have had.
Did you want to follow up, Art? No? Okay. Trustee Nicol?
I should just mention, since I've been teaching for 37 years, and everything comes around in a circle. In 1998, when I was teaching from 1990 to 1998, grade 12 curriculum had the circular. because I was one of the people that developed it, so I know there was social, that was the ones in 94, from 90 to 94, we realized it was the best way of doing it. Then after 98, it went along the wayside, and then it came back again. Education has a tendency to go in circles. I'm just letting you know. So what you think was no good 10 years ago might be the cat's meow 10 years hence.
Anyone else? Trustee Rowland?
In relation to those assessments, how many testing or assessments are done in a year? Let's say you would go 6 weeks, so you're getting about 5?
There's 4 formative. This year we had 3 formative just because of,
Oh, I should.
4. Usually there's 4. This year we had 3, usually there's 4. Formative.
Thanks, sorry. One more question. On your data here, you said that, you show that there was like 213 goals were directed towards comprehension reading, and the outcome shows that because the focus on the area was improved greatly, and the critical thinking needs some more support. Now, are your goal setting is, I think if I understand, you're saying it was student-driven more, and so are you going to be able to now sort of student drive them into an area they need more?
Heather and I chatted about that a couple weeks ago and ongoing since that. Obviously, we have some information that says, and it's somewhat typical, and they would know that too. If we're talking about critical thinking and problem solving, they jump to the front of some very complex things for students to learn in numeracy and literacy especially. So it was typical that those would show some results that were a little bit lower than some of those other areas like number reasoning and some of those other things. But it also showed us that that's a focus and that's an area for us. Now, how are we going to influence our teachers, to influence our students, and have them focus in those areas when we're trying to have them become more independent goal setters with success, but yet still use possibly those areas? Absolutely, it's a goal of ours to do that. But then is that in the essence of what our school goal is? We're going to plan to take that data and to try and fill some holes with that specifically on those 2 areas, critical thinking and problem solving. Absolutely, but but limiting what a student is going to set a goal in those areas, I don't know if that's where we're at yet. Because we want it to be valuable to them and independent to them so they can see success in goal setting. We're going to have to use that in a different instructional area to try and fill some of those. All right? We chatted about it. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for your report. It was very informative. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
I think one of the things that we've talked about is one of the backdrops of the goal setting is sort of indirectly creating that culture where kids can struggle and take risks and try things when you might not be successful, because as humans we pick the thing that we're good at, and how do we shift that culture into the things that might be riskier? So that's the hard work I think that these guys are going to do behind the scenes.
Anyone else? Trustee Duma? No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Good presentation. Plus, I like the passion. But this is not the first year you've used MRLC. You've been using it for a while, right? So would you say you've been using it for 5 years? Or you're just getting good at it now?
We've been using it for 5 years?
Yeah.
I've been part of the pilot program. I was the second. There was an initial group, and I want to say they started 7 years ago. I think they called themselves Cohort A. I was the group of second teachers who started it. I think I was called Cohort B. So I think I've been doing it for 6 years. I think it has been adopted through Sunrise 4 years. Does that sound right for grade 6s?
I think so.
Might be 5.
Might be 5.
Might be 5.
That you'd have to get the information, but like I was a couple years. I want to say I was 1 or 2 years ahead of all 6s and 9s doing it. Sixes and 9s started, and then now it's 7 and 8s as well.
Yeah. This is our first year for our 7 and 8 teachers to participate.
So the whole school is now using the MRLC.
With this, now the 7s and 8s will have the same, I guess, fulfill the expectations that the 6s and 9s have been doing for a while.
So that's interesting, because it's interesting to see how it's come into the school and then slowly gets bigger and bigger. Because I guess the question down the road will be, will the grade 9 folks notice a difference once the grade 6, 7, and 8s have had this? So we're not ready to measure that quite yet, it sounds like. Okay. And the other thing was last year's goal, you had one goal, which was critical thinking. I believe that was it. And so now I see that that isn't a big goal on the list for this year. But did you think that there was any difference in how kids approached you because they had the year of critical thinking? Did you think that there was anything that came out of that from last year in terms of working with them this year?
Not to say critical thinking could always be a school goal specific. It's very complex skill set, especially at this age level. It's just has become embedded in our instruction. So as we learn some things and professionally developed all together as we did it, and we obviously had some people that helped us and some coaches. It's now become embedded and it's in the instruction, whether it's in ELA or some of the other areas. I think that's how a school goal has to live, because it can't stay forever. So if it guides your instruction, I think that's what's happening more with the critical thinking, the specific part of that. And then we listened to people when they said goal setting needs to happen for more independence. We listened to our teachers. Is that
That's very good. Yeah. Thank you very much for your presentation.
So I agree with Trustee Duma. Certainly passion, and thanks for sharing that. And it's great to see certainly that the data is informing your practice, and it's the conversations that you're having certainly around that. Because you'll hear us talking about that as a board now, is that whatever you're doing, how do you know it's working? And if it's not working, what are you doing about it? And so you've talked all about that, so thanks for going ahead and doing that. You talked about social skills and now personal development. Those are always hard to measure, unless the measurement is as easy as, are kids making more friends? And if they're telling you they're making more friends, that's good. The question is, why are they making more friends, and how do you build on that, those kind of things. Can you touch briefly on, okay, so now personal development next year, what does personal development mean? Go ahead, Christine.
I think for us, we opened up the terminology to give kids flexibility. There are, of course, different levels of it. A lot of it is executive functioning, organization, transitioning from elementary school to middle school and then middle school to senior years. We definitely have seen kids come in with skill sets that need to be improved in certain areas. I think certain things you want to be measurable with your goals, but a lot of them are through observation. And I think that's an important part of Sunrise policy is triangulation and assessing and looking at things from student surveys where we conference students independently journaling, observations. I think if you use that triangulation model, whether the goal is organizing a binder, making new friends, those are things that we can still observe and get student reflection and response on.
So great. So at the end of the day, what I'd like you to do is, as you come back to us next year, I'm going to ask you this question. So, in that, how do you know it's working? You don't have to say anything now, but that's what I'm going to go ahead and ask you, is that how do you know what you're doing around personal development is working? Last question is for you, Bob. You've got probably 2 minutes to answer this question, no more. You've got the ear of the board. You've got 7 trustees here. What's working? What do you need? You got 2 minutes.
It's always, it's easy for me, and unfortunately it gets a little bit around fiscal, it gets a little bit around budget. So when you see that I need time and we need dollars, so I can meet with people like this, so we can coach, collaborate to obviously influence our staff to be more professionally developed instructional leaders, those are important type of dollars. I'm kind of being facetious here. I can't do this on my own. I don't have it, and I shouldn't. I shouldn't. So to have the collaboration opportunity and the dollars and the release time and all of those things, it's very valuable. They don't waste my time or anyone else's time. If you consider that can still be part of a long-term goal for us to support those things, I know there's always the challenge of who are we going to meet with, when can we do it? For us to meet with some of those program leaders and to free up these people, very valuable. I don't know how we pull it off sometimes. I still don't know how. But if we lost that entirely, I would say that would be a struggle to grow as learners. I'm a fan of SMS as instructional leaders. I'm a fan of our instructors entirely. But if we expect people to grow and stay fresh, we have to have those opportunities. So that's the biggest one for me.
All right. Thanks very much for the four of you coming out. We appreciate it. The board very much likes this kind of a conversation with our schools, for give you a chance to go ahead and share some of your passion and share some of the things that's working in your schools. Also to share some of the challenges so that we can hear and understand certainly what some of the needs are. But thanks, actually, sir, on behalf of the board, thank you very much for coming out. And we'll tell you how many millions of people were watching your presentation a little bit later.
I thought you were going to say millions of dollars.
Kath, last words?
Yeah, thanks for coming on a sunny June evening and spending some time with us. It's really awesome to sit back and to hear some of the things that you start growing and having that common language and just sort of sitting back and beaming and watching that passion that I can remember when it started 7 years with 5 people. So yeah, it's good stuff. Thank you.
Nobody said you could leave. I don't know what. Thanks very much. What's that? Okay, so we have our French Immersion, a reminder as a board. One of the things that we've asked in our plan is certainly a review of French Immersion, and I think I'm going to let Kathy go ahead and make some introductions.
So I'm going to welcome Suzanne Deanspear, who is going to be speaking to you briefly about the Sunrise French Immersion Review. She is the voice of our French Immersion Review, and she and Jackie Julian did all of the
involved in learning a language. There's academic learning, and in French Immersion they are learning math en français, social studies en français, science en français, and in most cases phys ed en français, sometimes music en français, and then they only get a teeny tiny bit of time in English language arts. So it varies by grade level. In kindergarten it's 100% French. We need to give bonuses to kindergarten teachers in immersion. So you can imagine being a kindergarten teacher when the children know how to speak English to you, but now you spend your entire day speaking French to them and they don't know a word. So challenging work for sure, but you'll see that that circle goes beyond the school, right? That very much you're going to become a language user if you use your French, and you see its role outside of school. And so outside of school can be social media, it could be field trips,
It could be experiences like Chair of the Board described with their Petit Café and doing a restaurant order and you're serving people in French. That's not a school subject, it's actually an experience. So I think that's just a summary of what we envision for a French immersion program. Okay, next slide. Our review was situated in a context that the province of Manitoba had conducted a French immersion review process between 2013 and 2018, and Sunrise participated in that. And so that process is trying to support schools and school divisions in implementing fully a French immersion program. So the outcomes of the program are near the top of the chart, and they're all about students and about that student pathway that you saw in that oval diagram and the students moving forward. But they need to develop language proficiency, they develop confidence, very important word, in their own language skills, they engage in learning and using French, they participate in the Francophone community, they develop their self-identity as a plurilingual and lifelong language learner, and they discover and experience different aspects of la francophonie, and they develop intercultural competencies. So that's important because on the globe, my little tidbit of trivia is there are more humans on Earth that speak more than one language than there are people who speak only one language. And so, increasingly in a global world, we're equipping students whenever they are becoming plurilingual and they understand other cultures more because of that. What does that mean for us? We're trying to review how well we're doing in creating a French immersion setting, how well we're doing in validating a student's both linguistic and educational experience, how are we doing with our educational staff and their professional learning, and then what is our student enrollment trends looking like in French immersion. So those were the key areas identified by the province of Manitoba. Sunrise participated. We have, big, huge reports about all that, but it was clear that we had to say, well, we did this review, but we also took in all the information from those years of participating in an earlier review about French immersion in Manitoba. So, what did we do? We reviewed that 2013 to 2018 provincial review process, looked at all the documents. I got an update. I can't share it with you. I'm on a committee with Manitoba Ed, and you sign confidentiality agreements. But they had a few new pieces of data and enrollment trends to share beyond 2018. And so that was taken into account in preparing the review with Jacqueline Julien also. We wanted to survey parents, teachers, students, and administrators. And we wanted to look especially at engagement, because if you look at, on the chart, you look at the student outcomes, they are all related to a student having to become engaged in becoming a plurilingual citizen of the world. So that was the focus of the questionnaires we sent out to parents, teachers, students, and admin. Then we also looked at this year's provincial assessment data for grade 3 and grade 4 students. We were not able to look at grade 7 and 8 because I don't think it had been released in time for the preparation of this report. We also had a report prepared for Sunrise that looked at provincial assessment data between 2013-14 and 2017-18, so we looked at that. And then the informal class visits, conversations with teachers and administrators also informed the findings and the recommendations of this report. So, here were highlights in a brief summary that parents and students reported that their proficiency in French had improved throughout their experience in the program. So here, especially important to me, it was that students said they got better at speaking French. They got better at using French. And they were able to self-assess about that. That was really important to me.
We heard from students that they planned on using French beyond graduation. And so that was also exciting. Do they see themselves as part of that Francophone world? So sometimes it was that they were going to pursue post-secondary education and still study French. Sometimes it was statements like grade 11 and 12 students saying, I want to be able to pass on French to my children when I have children. So that actually means that we are successful in that vision of the French immersion program because they see French as something beyond the classroom. This bigger document has little quotes of what students actually said or teachers actually said, and so you could read those when you have time to delve into the bigger document. We also saw in our review that teachers who had received support, therefore they received training, felt comfortable in using the new methodology. So as part of this new vision, the way we taught French immersion when I started teaching in 1984 is different now, and it's new methodology. And so we had to undertake training teachers, and I think we did a reasonable job. Then the pandemic hit. We have also staffing realities. People take maternity leaves, and so we hire in new people to replace them, and we had to get a sense through this review of who is trained and who still requires training. But once teachers are trained, they do feel comfortable in using that new methodology and that new approach and the new Français curriculum. So there's a new Français curriculum, and Français would be the equivalent of English language arts, but in French. It's a K-12 curriculum that's very different. It does not use outcomes, so it really makes us plan and assess in a different way. Another summary is that we really need all teachers to participate in that professional learning so that we can strengthen language outcomes and to retain as many students as possible for the full 12 or 13 years of the program. They can begin in kindergarten or they can begin in grade 1. We see that our enrollment trend or retention trend would be better use of a word, I think, that just like the province of Manitoba, we have all-time highs in enrollment in French immersion. It's very popular. But if we follow cohorts, so children who start in kindergarten, how many of those children actually graduate at grade 12 with a French immersion diploma? So the province, the provincial data that was part of the earlier review, I think the most recent one was 2018, is that about half of the students leave the French immersion program. And so they leave for many reasons. They leave because they might want to choose a technical vocational option. They may leave the program because they move and they go to a school division in Manitoba that doesn't offer French immersion. They may leave because they experience significant difficulty and parents decide to have them go. They leave at transition points, so this is more a Manitoba overview, right? So if your school goes to grade 5 and then you're going to another school for grade 6, 7, and 8, sometimes kids choose the school that their friends are going to go to, so they convince their parent that they're going to leave. So it's multifactorial, the reason why we lose kids. The most recent data that I saw, but I said I signed a confidentiality agreement. I won't show the graph, but it's a little bit better. It's about 60% in the last cohort that graduated. So of the kids in Manitoba who started in French immersion in kindergarten, about 60% of them graduated with a French immersion diploma. So that summary, how do we strengthen what we're doing to keep as many students as possible, although some leave for life choices. Sorry, this is my voice. So, next slide, I think. Still part of the summary is that French immersion school leaders do give attention to having specific school goals, but we should formalize that. So they submit school plans. There should be, I think, a specific section for a French immersion goal related to that chart I showed you with those 4 key areas. An example would be when the province did the original review,
one of our schools noticed that, hey, yeah, we don't have signage in our school that really, you know, the buildings, the rooms aren't labeled in French, so kids in French immersion go to the library. Well, they should be going to the bibliothèque. And so that school made a strong effort, and they purchased signage and made sure there was signage throughout the school, because kids need to know that they're in a French space and it has to be beyond the classroom. So they responded to things like that. Thanks, Kathy. So there are, and they're backwards, so we're going to go from 8 to number 1. So there are 8 recommendations, and in this document there's a table that outlines them, so you might want to go to that just to see a broader overview of where things fall and where responsibilities lie for each of those recommendations. So French immersion should be promoted as an inclusive program for all students. When I started in French immersion, it was not in this school division, but safe to say that it was quite an elitist program. And so it was often seen, it wasn't intended that way, but it was often seen as, oh, my child is kind of gifted, so we're going to choose French immersion for them, or professional parents who had a relatively high socioeconomic status were choosing French immersion. But really it's an inclusive program, just as any other program in Manitoba is inclusive. So we've networked, and I consulted with principals of other schools. They have children with on the autism spectrum who live with autism. They have children with Down syndrome who are part of the French immersion, as do we. We have children who are identified, but it should be promoted. Sometimes parents don't realize that it's an option for them. Then recommendation number 7, we should explore all avenues to offer more credits en français for senior years. So right now, 14 credits for a high school immersion diploma, 14 of the 30 credits. And potentially that number may actually be increasing from the province as well. So we should look at more options. Why? Kids need to see using French beyond those academics. So we do a really good job of offering those credits in those core subject areas, but kids should be able to, I don't know, take photography, and it's delivered in French, because that will be something relatable to the outside world and participating in that Francophone space beyond school. That's just an example. 6, Sunrise should review its teacher database to identify all teachers who are capable of teaching in French immersion. I don't know if you know, there's a national shortage of French immersion teachers. So the national shortage is about 1,500 FTE of French immersion teachers across the country. And so we work really hard. We have an awesome team to do our hiring whenever we have postings. And this is a challenge. For a while it was a challenge just in rural areas. Now the urban school divisions are challenged, because it's just a reflection of that national shortage. More and more parents are choosing French immersion, but we need teachers to teach them. So sometimes we have teachers teaching in the English program, but they may be able to teach in French immersion, so we should check that out with all our staff and all their human resources file. Okay, recommendation 5, that we should verify the language proficiency of French immersion staff and then offer support to increase that proficiency. Teacher shortage, we are hiring the best people. St. Boniface College has Université St. Boniface has increased the number of graduates from their teacher education program. They all get snapped up by the city divisions, we can tell you that already. So they, I think, have increased to about 60 graduates. That does not meet the need. So it means we are hiring people who need to improve their French. School divisions do often cover costs of teachers seeking upgrading. And school divisions, other school divisions formally assess teachers' proficiency. We do assess it, so to be transparent, we do. It's not really formalized, right? And
We should promote French immersion teaching as a career. We had students in grade 11 and 12 mention in our surveys that they were wanting to be French immersion teachers. So, we're small, we're rural. I was connecting with a superintendent, an assistant superintendent in another rural school division. They are pretty close to offering those grade 12 students jobs upon graduation from grade 12. To say, come back to work for us when you finish your education degree. That's how bad the shortage is. So I think that we need those kinds of strategies. And it was really interesting. I thought, yes, high school teachers will know these students. They will know what they're like as students and what they're like in engaging in the Francophone world. So we should pursue that and perhaps even offer bursaries to graduating students who are going into education. 4, so next slide. There's this great big work being done by Manitoba Education that will be ready in the 2022-2023 school year, so we encourage Sunrise leaders to participate in that. If we have new leaders, there will be sessions like French Immersion 101, what's it all about, how do you lead in a French immersion school, to see that that vision truly comes to life because it's different than the English program. Recommendation number 3, we talked about providing teachers with training. I think we did a reasonable job. The pandemic put a lot of things on hold, so Sunrise should develop a plan to ensure that all staff get that support in training for that methodology. And then 2, both English and French immersion staff in our 4 dual track schools should have a solid understanding of the goals of the program. So bringing that to staff meeting, we have programs within a broader school, and everyone in the building needs to be need to have an understanding of the goals. Why is that important? Those children, and in our parents especially, said they would like to see more French in the hallways and more French beyond the classroom. So you can have English program teachers. Our English program teachers often teach French communication and culture, formerly known as basic French. They can speak in French to those children in the hallways when they understand the goals of the French immersion program. And then the number 1, that schools should have their yearly goals linked to the full implementation of that French immersion program. That was that big chart that had the 7 student outcomes and the 4 key areas for full implementation. Not as exciting as hearing about students, but I urge you to look at the quotes in here because that was the best part of conducting this, was to read what the students said. So we asked schools to have a middle years class complete a survey, and then all grade 11 and all grade 12 students. So I really like reading what they said. Question?
Thanks. Thanks, Suzanne. Questions for anybody here? Trustee Barry?
I think it was an interesting presentation that you didn't touch on it, but I think you just said about it a little bit, was roughly how is the enrollment? Has it stayed the same? Is it, what sort of percentage of Sunrise are French immersion?
I did forget one interesting fact for you, and it is in the larger report on the
okay.
Primarily provincial data, but there are 14 rural school divisions that offer the French immersion program, and Sunrise has the second largest population of students enrolled as a percentage of their total student enrollment. So for rural, we're doing really well.
What percent?
The actual demographics are on page 2.
Oh, okay, great.
2 right at the top.
Oh, great,
So,
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, 378 at the Cosmic School, 200
Oh, great, great.
132 at Berkshire, and 94.
Great, thanks, yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Others?
Yep.
Trustee Duma?
Just a question. I thought this was interesting in one of the recommendations to have a formal procedure should be developed for student services to address appropriate programming for all students in French immersion, but also having a clear process for withdrawals from the program. So just a question, when people do withdraw from the program, regardless whatever area they're in, is there ever a conversation with those students as to why they've decided to leave the program? And do we have that information formally?
So I think school by school, they would have it primarily for the ones we know about where it's related to having some learning challenges. The ones I know about would be typically a parental decision, right? And so we would not be saying your child needs to leave the program, just as we would not be saying that for a child in an English program, because where are they going to go, right? So it is inclusive. I would say there's no formal process around what they're doing, but schools certainly will have met, they'll have discussed things at student services, but it's primarily driven by a parent. Once a child is experiencing difficulties, parents reasonably say, oh, it must be the French immersion program, let's change them. Research studies by researchers who research this issue say what happens most of the time is the child continues to have learning challenges when they switch to the English program, so it's made no difference except for this. The children with learning difficulties that stay actually achieve a reasonable level of proficiency in the second language, whereas if they leave, they don't. By formal procedure, though, you know, there are some there are some that exist, and so we don't have to invent one, but I think it might be something for the student services world to consider actually writing it down. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things we talked about as a board is doing a number of program reviews, and it isn't me who's done the program review, because a large amount of what Suzanne and Jackie have done with staff and students and parents and administrators is come up with recommendations not only for you as a board where they're appropriate, but for me as a superintendent. And one of those things might be, oh, okay, hang on, I need to pay attention to some of the things here, and those are things that we can grab onto and implement. And that's by design. That is by design so that it is objective and informing what we need to do.
Anyone else?
I was just wondering about the survey. You said you contacted stakeholders on that. How was that survey done with students and families and that? I think you initially had mentioned you did surveys. Right.
Thank you. So we used Microsoft Forms. We crafted questions, and for teachers that was easy. I just sent it through email. They knew that this was coming. Again, email to administrators for those questionnaires. Administrators were said to please choose a middle years classroom, and all of the students in that classroom responded. And schools with senior year students, please have all your grade 11 and 12 students do that. Parents during COVID I found more of a challenge, so asked and sent to parents who sat on PACs at schools, and then reached out again to some more parents. Teachers helped me in some cases, but less responded, and I think that's a reflection of COVID. Really, that was harder to engage, so it was more limited in having parents respond.
And then did you and Jackie Julian compile that data, or how did you, who manipulated that data?
Yeah, and so
I think I have a teacher voice, but I have to think about the audience. Yeah, so we provided in the review report those summaries that Microsoft Forms app provides, and then to superintendent an Excel spreadsheet so she can mine the exact comments of everyone that entered information in there.
Am I allowed more questions? You mentioned the methodology had changed. When did that happen? Because I think you mentioned that some of our teachers still need training in that. So how far back is that, and where are we at with that?
I want to say that when the new vision was released in 2017, it was paired with the new methodology. Yep.
Others? Yeah, keep going.
Sorry, but I was just wondering, you mentioned about now we're at about 60% graduation for students that begin their education in French. Was there any, I mean, you did mention that they tend to maybe drop at transitional moments, but was there like a significant adjustment? Like I know that at some points in other reasons with children, you notice like at maybe 10 or 12 or 4, like that there's a significant change. And is there any data that says when that really hits? Is there a pivotal moment for the kids?
I don't think in Sunrise there is, and in some ways Sunrise has a little bit of an anomaly that, for example, in Springfield, the population at École Dugald School that continues on to Collège Pierre-Elliott Trudeau, they fall off our data. So if we looked at Sunrise data on retention, it looks like we've lost all those students to French immersion. But they're not lost, right? And they will finish the bulk of them and get a French immersion diploma, but at that point they're part of River East Transcona's data set. So we're a little odd that way when you look at our data. But I think overall the review just found that Sunrise data looks quite similar to the provincial data trend. And so, yeah, I don't think we minded enough to really get at the root of that retention issue. Yeah.
Thanks, Suzanne. Anyone else? Suzanne, I have one question for you. You mentioned a couple times where teachers who have received support and need all teachers to participate. Kind of brought a little flag to me. So what do you mean by that?
It's just the challenge of bringing in people and training and going from school to school and making sure we get everyone, because programs growing. We have lots of young teachers. They go on maternity leave, so a new one comes. We have to keep doing cycles of training. And then, of course, during the pandemic and challenges with substitute teachers, and even doing it at the school level and not being able to cross cohorts sometimes, and it became really problematic, so that we don't have 100% of staff trained. It's staff turnover essentially, and new, because we have new classrooms of students starting. Yeah. And one of the other comments that you made certainly is that I think it was with regard to formalizing verification of a language proficiency, and you're doing that. But then you put in here that we should consider about some kind of incentive for our teachers. Do our teachers not have a whole lot of opportunity to access professional development funds now? Especially with, because I know that we're not using all of the STA contractual PD, and is there not an opportunity if somebody wants to go and take courses? Is that not available to them? I think, did you want to say something first? Yeah.
I think one of the things that's a difficulty as a French immersion teacher, and I used to be one and still consider myself to be one, is that you end up teaching many courses. And you end up teaching some of them in French, and then you also do some of the mirror courses in English, and you're stretched a little thin, and sometimes it's a question of, okay, how much PD can I do in all of the areas that I'm doing? If I'm a high school teacher and I'm teaching math and science and Français and sciences humaines, I've got 4 subjects I need to kind of rotate, and I think sometimes that draws on our teachers in terms of I can only do so much each year. and they also do some English training, and they also do some of the MRLC work, and they also do some of those things, and it becomes a stretch. They'll do that training with their English counterparts in English, but then they've got to go and do a second dose of training en français. That's an uninformed perception, but that I see for sure.
I think the other issue around, funding them perhaps to take training beyond, it's not necessarily professional development in the teacher world on pedagogy, and it's language courses, and it may even be less formal opportunities like offered by l'Alliance Française du Manitoba, or we have neighboring school divisions that do night courses and a teacher teaches it, and just to do some more thinking about that.
Thank you. Anything else for Suzanne? So I appreciate, Suzanne, about you and coming in and presenting together with, on behalf of you and Jackie. Thank you very much. This is something our board probably needs to spend some more time on, not tonight, but it is a huge program for us. It's a great report that you've put together. But I don't think that this is the only time that we should be talking about French immersion, and we've certainly seen some recommendations that are there, but I do think that it needs to come back, Kathy, for us to have some more conversation. Merci. We're going to move on. 5.1 is our minutes. So be resolved, the board adopt the May 17th board meeting minutes. Before I do this, Suzanne is retiring, right? And you know what? Sorry, Suzanne. Do you know what? You've done such a great job for us over the years, and I probably would be amiss that we have you here to say thank you for the work that you've done. And you've done the work in French, you've done the work in English, you've done the work with early years, you've done a number of things. So certainly we're going to miss you, and thank you very much for all the work that you've done, certainly on behalf of the Sunrise School Division. I felt a kick under the table from Kathy, so and I forgot about it, but thanks very much, Suzanne. Yeah. Okay, minutes. Sorry, guys. I just thought No, you can't go, Crystal. You can. Yeah, you can. Go ahead. Okay, be it resolved, the board adopt the May 17th minutes. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Trustee Nicholl, seconded by Trustee Berry. Questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Okay, so it passed with 5 trustees, 1 voting no and 1 abstaining. Superintendent's report. Kath?
Very briefly and very quickly, I think it is very appropriate to congratulate Kalia Haskins, a grade 9 student at École Edward Schreyer, who placed first in our province in the grade 9 and 10 category of a provincial French-speaking contest. So, félicitations, Kalia. I do want to highlight that you've got the graduation times and dates there, but it is important to note that our colony schools is by invite only, so if you're attending, your colony would invite you to come attend. Please tune in Thursday to our long service and retirement virtual event. It's pretty exciting, and there's some great speeches and great toasts and roasts. Lastly, in the fall, there will be information coming from Manitoba Education where all of our coaches and staff and personnel will be doing Respect in Sport and or Respect in School program. So if we have staff who are coaching and also teaching, they will do both Respect in Sport and Respect in School. And it is also pretty important to note that we do Respect in Schools right now. So all of our staff in our schools have done Respect in Schools. We've been doing that for years now. So we're ahead of the curve with some of that training in our school division. Unless there's questions, I'm done.
Trustee Nicholl?
Is the Respect in School program exactly the same that I took 4 or 5 years ago, or is it different?
Yeah, you know what, they in the letter from the province, and I think that I included the letter from the province saying enhanced protection, they talked about making some changes to the content. So they don't want people doing it until September 1st because there may be some content changes coming. We've had some staff who said, well, I've trained, and how often, do I need to do this? We're waiting to hear about some changes that are coming.
Thanks, Kath. Trustee Duma?
Sorry, I just wanted to jump on that school supply budget. It's that last paragraph there that, so on April the 19th, we did have a report that said that school administrators will communicate with the staff at each school site. That communication to families and students will occur before the end of the current school year. And also musical instrument rentals are not included in the allocation. So I guess reading from your report, have the schools not informed the parents yet? Like, that's my question, because I'm hoping that they all know yesterday. Thank you.
Yeah, so parents, our schools send home that information with final report cards, and so we send something kind of as an all-staff thing that goes out. We typically have flagged middle of June because people are just working on graduating and those kinds of things, and it doesn't hit the radar till a little bit later. So we've got a letter that's set to go home with report cards, and we'll put that out a couple of weeks before end of school year so that everybody leaves the school year. Part of the feedback that we got from the system was if you'd told us about this back in April, it's just not on our radar and not important until we start packing up all the school supplies we had and thinking about what we have to buy for next year. So we've advertised it here. We've talked to anybody who has that, but they'll get a formal letter mid-June out to the schools and on our website.
Sorry, I just know that I was a parent that had all my kids in music, and I wasn't waiting till the end of June. That's why I'm just concerned that people know and that it's widely distributed. Like, we already made this decision in April, so I just think as long as it's widely distributed to everybody as soon as possible. Thank you.
So musical instrument information has gone home with students already.
No, good point, and thanks, Kath, for clarifying that. People can certainly look back to it here. We do have another further discussion in our last meeting in June with regard to school fees, but once again with supplies, it's here as to what we've agreed to. Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Okay, thanks, Kath. We also have the draft reporting schedule. However, that's for information for people, and that's certainly where you saw the existing one come out. Kathy has given us one, and we do need to give her feedback as we move into next year about what kind of programs, a program evaluation. Right now, she's suggested it to us. If we want something different, then we need to let her know as a group what we're looking for different, correct? Okay. I'm going to move on to you, Jody, Secretary Treasurer's Report.
Yeah, I'll just kind of make it brief, knowing that everybody had some time to take a look at the documents, but in regards to other general matters, I was fortunate to go visit Anola Lactabani Senior, Centennial, Dugald, Richland, and Grafton since we last met, and all those schools are amazing. We have fantastic staff in those schools, and I'm very fortunate to work in this division with staff that have such passion for student learning. So other things that I want to just inform the board about, June 9th, I have a meeting with the Broken Head Recreation Commission to try and see if we can have some sort of agreement or an understanding about use of facilities. I did reach out to the CAO of the town of Beausejour. They responded back. They advised that we can just book the facilities through the normal booking methods. At this time, they're not interested in creating or making an arrangement of an agreement. So it's only the Broken Head Rec Commission that would be interested. The town of Beausejour, where we actually use a number of facilities, we would just go through their normal channels. So at this time, it'll be a discussion with the Rec Commission and go from there and see what options we have that I can bring to the board. Today I also met with the RM of Springfield in regards to the Dugald parking lot situation at the daycare. Really good discussion. There's some options. We definitely, I have asked for boundary lines. They provided some more information on that, and now we're just looking at costs. So I'll bring that forward. The RM of Springfield's not sure if they can provide me the details by the next board meeting, though. I don't know if everybody's aware the RM of Springfield union has decided to go on strike, so their management team is a little stretched thin. So for them to assist us with some information, it might take a little bit longer than normal. But it was good discussion. I think we're going to have a solution to bring forward. Other things, Education Foundation, we're going to have that later on the board meeting here. I'm looking forward to the next steps for that. Yeah, and I attended the Springfield planning meeting again at the Dugald. It's near the Dugald daycare site. There's a Springfield Seniors Complex. They submitted a subdivision. What they're anticipating is just doing a phased in, or another, I guess, another phase for assisted living in the same area. They're looking at access off of Highway 15, so that should assist us with the issue off of Jaffrey, especially with their extension. But there's further discussion with their planning side of matters. But that's kind of it on a high level. I attended the MASBO conference last week, and it's been fantastic. Met new faces and new contacts to share happy notes and sad things. So and that's about it for high level.
Thanks, Jody. Questions for Jody? So Jody, you do have the rec commission. We've talked about that. We were looking at our other centers and our rec commission agreements, those kind of things, and you'll let us know when those come. Perfect. Thank you. Jody, we have landmark planning. Do you want to quickly, it's 7.2, do you want to quickly talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, there's not a lot, I think, in the report. Kind of gives it really the Coles Notes version, but they are in the process of finalizing the report. They gave me an update end of May. I asked them to make sure that they're on track for a report by the end of June, June 30th. So they're in the process of completing their growth and population projections, which is really probably the hardest part of doing one of these reports. You're going off of information submitted to municipalities. And sometimes, yeah, there's intention for growth and development, but sometimes it comes slower than anticipated. So, but they're analyzing the data, and they are on track to have the report by end of year.
So I think probably our mistake, Jody, and this didn't involve you, but we probably should have said we wanted the report June the 15th, so that we have a chance to go ahead and see it. So that's probably our mistake, talking about June the 30th, and the trustees will see it over the summer. But if we wanted to have it ready for our last board meeting, mental note that we need to make sure we change that date. Anyone else on that? Okay, thanks, Jody. We're into 8.1 COVID costs. It's there for us. Is there anything that's outstanding with that, Jody?
Yeah, I think it's similar to what I've provided to the board in the past. We are definitely spending those funds allocated to our school division and submitting. There'll be another quarterly report to the province. I think if anybody has questions, ask away.
Question for Jody about COVID costs? Well presented. Thanks, Jody. 8.2, Royal Canadian Legion recognition book. Who's that? Is that? Go ahead, Jody.
I think we're just staying consistent with what we've done in the past at the board. There's usually a motion passed if we should put an ad or an article into the Legion book. So just staying consistent.
All right, so be it resolved that the board approve the purchase of a quarter-page color remembrance ad in the Military Service Recognition Book sponsored by the Royal Canadian Legion. Motion by Trustee Nichols, seconded by Trustee Duma. Any questions to it? Do we need to put a dollar amount in this? Okay, missed it. Sorry. Okay, hearing none, we'll vote. Yep. Okay, I called the question already, and people are voting. We can go through with it. I think that probably will go through with it, but a mental note, we probably should be putting stuff into a motion. But I think that I've already called a vote, so let's vote on it. It won't be in the motion, because I think that we've called it already. So,
Really, you call the motion, you get a first and a seconder, and then you reread the motion,
oh, okay.
which is,
Okay, I don't think I've ever done that.
but that's okay.
Yeah, I think that just in the future, let's just get an idea that let's put it in the dollars into our motion. Okay. So I still think that we're waiting on two of you to vote. Thank you. Passed 7-0. Proposal to subdivide, that's for information, Jody. Is there anything else that need to add?
No, I think this is the one that I kind of mentioned, the proposal to subdivide that's related to the RMS Springfield, just off of Jaffrey and Highway 15, right in front of our Dougal daycare. So what they're looking at is redoing the lines to accommodate for a assisted living seniors complex. So just kind of phasing in they have a long-term plan for that site, and this is phase 2 of, I think, 3 or 4 phases.
Questions? Trustee Rowland?
Sorry, it's actually a little bit, I should have asked when you were previously talking about this in your report, but you did mention about a road, and I did sort of see maybe on the map they have something there. Is there actually going to be a road? Because they've tried previously to have one approved by the province, which was denied, and they have success this time?
Great question. So in the proposal, they're showing a road access off of Highway 15 and connecting to Jaffrey. What the council of the day, because it's a subdivision made by the RM of Springfield and Springfield Seniors Nonprofit Co-op. What I understand by them discussing it is they will not be connecting the road from the two ends for traffic to loop through, but they have still made application for highways, or made application to the province for the approval. It sounds like they've kind of received a verbal okay, but no formal documentation yet. So that's where, at that planning hearing, is where the information they provided at that time.
Oh, sorry.
Thanks. Anything further on that? Okay, thanks, Jody. That was 8.4. 8.5, a carryover request for our schools. So be it resolved, the board approve the request to carry over surplus funds to the 2023 in an amount of $70,321. I need a mover. Moved by Trustee Nicol, seconded by Trustee Rowland. Any comment on this? Trustee Inslee?
Sorry. Some of the requests are quite a lot higher than the surplus that they're allowed. Was I reading the documents correctly? Like, I don't know, I just left one of them open. Those are your early years. Maximum allowable carryover, 3% of budget, which was 6,500, carryover request 10,000. So they technically are only allowed to carry over 6,500, but they want to carry over 10. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole purpose of bringing it to the board, if the school would like to carry over more than the 3%, some of these events or situations like Beausejour early years may have experienced some surplus because of items they wanted to purchase couldn't get delivered until later, or have been canceled because of this COVID supply chain. So there is a surplus in respect to Beausejour early years. Yeah, they are asking for more than the 3%. There is about $10,000 in their surplus projected. It still can change between now and the end of the school year. there'll be some expense claims coming in that we didn't include in these projections. There's also going to be probably a timing issue with when items are received. They should be received by June 30th, but if they're received July 3rd, they're in the new budget year. So there will be some movement with the allotted projected surplus. So that's why some of them will say up to a maximum of $10,000, or if there's more, to be more. But at this time, both as your earlier is in the ballpark of about $10,000 surplus.
No, I mean, I'd got all the documents open and like closed them all, but so basically the 70,321 that the board's being requested to carry over, those funds are there.
Yeah, it's the 70,000 is the collection of all carryovers above the 3%. Yeah.
Trustee Duma?
I just lost it and I had it in front of me. There it is. Okay, I just want to, could we amend the motion and put in that it, so people are understanding that it's a school surplus funds? Be it resolved that the board approve the request to carry over school actually it's 7 schools, correct? The school surplus funds for 7 schools. I just like it more clear as to what we're doing.
I'll just further clarify. I used the motion that was used prior, like last year, knowing that
we got to always
accepted.
get better. So
Okay.
anyways, that's my amendment. I'm just putting it out there if you want to tweak
Don,
it.
are you okay with that? Just talking about school surplus funds and the amount of schools. Is it 9 schools? Okay. I think Trustee Rowland, are you good with that? Okay. Jen, did you get that? So Jen, what we want to do is that be it resolved that the board approve the request to carry over school surplus funds of 7 schools to 2022-23 in the amount of $70,000, $70,321. Okay, there's 8 schools. Thank you. 8 schools. It's only 8. So be it resolved that the school board approve the request to carry over school surplus funds of 8 schools to 2022-23 in the amount of $70,321. Don?
Where do you get 8 schools from? When I'm reading here, I see 9 unless I can't count. Is there a report there? Okay, sorry.
So, be it resolved that the board approve the request to carry over school surplus funds of 8 schools to 2023 in the amount of $70,321. That's what's on the table. Any questions? Trustee Very?
Thanks for the clarification. Is this the most we've had for school funds requested, or have we had more in the past, just for clarification?
I would say that we've had more. We had more last year. Yeah. Anyone else? Trustee Duma?
I mean, it just lengthens the motion, but what it does is it makes it clear. So, I mean, you could put in the number of schools, or you could just list the schools. So, and the schools are listed in the above portion of the motion. They're right on this page, so.
Except that we can certainly, if we just put in 8 schools, people can come back to this and see that. Any others? Okay, let's vote. It passed 7, nothing. Thank you very much. Long service and retirement celebration, we've talked a little bit about it, but Kathy, do you want to talk some more?
Yes, I want to just share the names up there so that we can get them on screen for our million viewers. These are our retirees and our long service recipients. On our website will be a link to the virtual presentation. It will go live on Thursday evening at 7. I think we have some families and some celebrations on the go on that evening. It will also stay on our website over the summer so that it can be viewed by schools or by families, and again, it's not just a one-time deal on Thursday. The link will stay there so people can view the video going into the future. And thank you very much to Jennifer Baker and Patty Watman, who have been doing the bulk of the lifting with the recording and the piecing together of our celebration. Much appreciated.
Go ahead, Trustee Duma.
I know that when we do the board highlighter, is there ability to put a portion on the board highlighter with a congratulations from the board and list the names and just include it on the highlighter?
Yeah, great idea. Thank you. 8.7 is the monthly school enrollment. You have that for information. I don't think that there's any debate about it, but you have that information. We're going to move on to 8.8, a promissory note. So this is something that that Jody asked if she could add yesterday to the agenda, and it said that it was something certainly with time, with some important timing to it. So I'm going to let you know. Be it resolved that the board approve the promissory note, LTPSO 547, for the sum of $11,953,000 as outlined. I need a mover and a second. A move by Trustee Nicol, seconded by Trustee Reed. Comments or questions? Trustee Inslee?
Can you just explain this promissory note to me? Is it a grant? Is it? I don't know. I'm just struggling getting my head around it, and that it's not actually coming out of our budget.
Yeah, no, it's, I guess, part of the complicated part of the province gives us funds for capital projects. If you notice on the promissory note, it lists what projects it covers. So it'll be here, it talks about Lac Du Bonnet Senior School, their labs, 2 other schools, Whitemouth and Powerview. So it's a number of the capital projects, and it's a document that basically identifies we can go ahead and spend those funds and the province will reimburse us. The document is prepared as a promissory note, or other terms we've used is debenture. We don't take out a loan from a financial institution. It is a document that basically says the province will secure the funding and ensure that funds have been allocated for this project. And it's part of the, I want to say it's part of the public sector accounting standards, where we have to recognize the liability and the relationship that we have between the province and ourselves. So.
Great explanation. Thanks, Jody. Anyone else? Trustee Duma?
Again, just for clarity of the motion, I think it would be nice to say in here that it is for capital projects rather than just as outlined. People don't always want to refer back to packages, so I wondered if we could just say, yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Be it resolved that the board approve the promissory note for the sum of 11 million blah 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 for capital projects as outlined. Donnie, okay with that? As outlined for capital projects, I'm fine with that. Russ, are you okay with that? Jen, so as outlined for capital projects? Just after as outlined, after the 11,953,000. Okay, so we'll put that in there. Thank you for that. Trustee Duma?
Well, I guess just as we said, with adding numbers to our dollar numbers for the military recognition book, I think the same thing would be nice to put in here, the listing of the actual, not today, but for future reference, because that's good information for the public to know. We're doing the science lab, the ducts, you know, the wall replacements, the roof. It's nice to know what schools are being worked on for the public to know. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to call a question. Thanks, it passed 7-0, I appreciate it. Committee reports. The policy committee update, the chair Harris isn't here, but is there anything from the policy committee that, from any of the members that are here? So we haven't met since our last meeting, okay? Anybody want to make any comment though? No? Good. 8.10, yeah, Finance Committee Chair, Trustee Nicol. I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Minutes written.
Okay, these are Finance Committee minutes that's on May the 19th, and since we didn't have a meeting, remember these are probably draft minutes, but we usually don't change any of the minutes anyway, so this is probably the final one, but the next meeting is coming on June 17th, so we will have one before the last meeting on June 21st, and hopefully we'll have a real accurate surplus that we will have, whatever that will be. But it'll be only after June 17th, it's only now 13 more days, so hopefully we'll be able to get a better figure for the board.
Any questions for Don? Trustee Nicol? Okay, so those things are for information, the two sets of minutes that you have. Thank you. We have 8.13 is our indemnity bylaw. Before we get into our first reading, I'm going to turn it over to the Finance Chair, indemnity bylaw. Trustee Nicol, floor is yours.
This is a indemnity bylaw that the Finance Committee worked on last meeting, and there will be one change that's in here that we're going to make it to effective July the 1st, 2022 rather than September. So when we make the motion, we'll probably change that, but that will be changed. What we did is that the last time we looked at our indemnity bylaw was in 2019. So that was a number of years ago. In the meantime, the staff had got an increase, so that we've looked at the increase that the staff got, which was 5.5 right to the end of June. We're looking one more year, because this is for the year 2022 to 2023, and we added a 1.5%, which we think the cost of living is a very conservative percentage. So all the figures that here are increased by 6.5. The black is what it was, the red is what we're proposing. We compared this to what other divisions are doing. There's a high of 24,000 in some divisions, which in this case is Winnipeg 1, and probably as low as around 5,000, which is some of the smaller divisions out west. We seem to be, with this increase, we will be about in the middle of the pack in Region 3, which would be Selkirk, Evergreen, Lakeshore, Hanover, Interlake, Seine River, and but with this increase, we'll probably be in the middle of the pack. Some of them haven't increased it since 2020, so they might be increased, but we're around the middle of the pack, so we thought that it was quite reasonable. And at the same time, we tried to make it that it would encourage people to run for trustee in October, because you definitely don't want to be a trustee and have to put money out of your pocket. So this is what we are trying to achieve in this case.
Thanks for the work that you and the finance have done, Trustee Nicol. Does anybody want to make any comments? Okay, So we're going to read, where am I? 8.13, be it resolved that the board approve the first reading of the indemnity bylaw 375-22. And a move in a second, or moved by trustee Nickel, seconded by trustee Duma. Questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. It passed 7-0, thank you. And then 8.14, be it resolved that the board approve the second reading of the indemnity bylaw 375-22. Moved by trustee Nickel, seconded by trustee Reed. Comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. It passed 7-0, thank you. 8:15 is our Finance Committee check register. Be it resolved that the board receive the April 2022 check register with a total amount of checks issued at $6,067,194.56, reviewed on the May 19th by the Finance Committee for information. It's being moved by trustee Nickel, seconded by trustee Rowland. Comments to the check register? Hearing none, we'll vote. It passed 7-0, thank you. 8:16 is our Education Foundation Committee, and there's been a few of you that have been working on this, and I really appreciate the work that the group has done, particularly from some of our people that have been around for a little while, trustee Duma and trustee Nickel. Thank you for this. So be it resolved that the board approve and accept the amended and restated declaration of trust of the Sunrise School Division in respect to the Sunrise Education Foundation, and be it further resolved, the board approve the proceeding, be it further resolved, the board approve the proceeding to file the court application to formally amend the declaration of trust. Moved by trustee Duma, seconded by trustee Nickel. Any comments on that? Sorry, trustee Inslee?
You keep forgetting that I'm on the committee too.
Any other comments? Trustee Berry?
Just as a clarification, what does this whole resolution mean? What is our step? What's going to happen with the education? I guess I'll ask the committee members on this.
Go ahead, and we'll let...
I think it is to formally proceed with the final application. So we have gotten so far in the last 7 years to amend the declaration of trust. The Sunrise Education Foundation is a trust fund, and to amend any definitions or items in the trust, you have to formally make an application through the court system. You can't just apply through CRA or anything like that. We have to formally make application, talk to CRA on the structure that we're amending, and then formally make the proceeding. So we're at that stage of 7 years ago or 5 years ago. CRA approved what we wanted to do. We talked to a bureau from, or a member of the bureau in CRA that reviews trusts, and they basically talked to the solicitor and said, yes, that's fair, and you can move on. And then the project stalled, so now we're picking up where we left off and trying to file those court documents and continue on.
Trustee Duma?
Hopefully we can get this moving with the lawyer, but it definitely is also making the name officially incorporated in a file name, the name of the foundation.
It's been a long time coming, and it's great to see where we get here and to move on forward with it. it needs to get done. Trustee Nichol.
If we go back in history and look at one of the motions, we made a motion to spend so much money a long time ago, and the motion that you make is effective forever unless you amend the motion, so we do have a budget for it.
Perfect. Thanks, Trustee Nichol. Let's get it done. So, hearing no more, let's vote on this. Well, it's great to see, because I've sat around this table 14 years, and it's time that this got done, so thank you. So we move on to professional development. There's no items to report. 10.0 is board correspondence. I'm just going to address this so that people are aware, is that earlier Secretary Treasurer Thiessen informed the board that we have 3 portable classrooms that have been awarded by the province, one to Beaujeu Early Years, one to Dugald, and one to Oakbank Elementary. And Secretary Thiessen will keep us informed as to the timing of when these can go, but that's great news certainly for us. So thanks for the work that everybody put forward through this. Nice to know information. Certainly is there for us. We have upcoming meetings. Again, people have talked about the Long Service Award. If you can tune in, that'd be great on June the 19th. And our last board meeting, certainly for the calendar year, is on June 21st. Questions from the public?
I checked my emails and no questions from the public.
Thank you. Everyone else, have I missed anything? Okay. I think that we can adjourn, am I correct? So, we're in adjournment. Have a good one. Thank you for the work.